Biking in the Netherlands is a one-of-a-kind experience, but it's not without its faults. And in this video, I'm going to cover the harsh reality of biking here in the Netherlands. Now, before I get into this video, comment below and let me know if you want to see more POV biking videos like this one, with or without commentary, and I can post more on this channel, or I can start a whole new channel just dedicated to that. That said, let's get into some of the downsides of biking in the Netherlands. People always talk about the upsides, but rarely about the downsides. The first downside of biking in the Netherlands is the cost of bicycles. This is something that caught me by surprise because here in the Netherlands, I've noticed that almost everything is cheaper than it is in the US. But in the Netherlands, biking is more expensive, or buying a bicycle is more expensive, and that's largely due to supply and demand. Because there are so many people who rely on bicycles as their primary form of transportation or their secondary form of transportation, biking is more expensive. They can charge more money for bicycles because they know that people need them to get from point A to point B. Back home in the US, and in particular in Dallas where I grew up, that is not the case. Nobody buys bikes to actually get from point A to point B unless they are either A, dead broke, or B, underage and without a license, or maybe if they have a suspended license, and even then they'll probably catch an Uber, carpool with friends, etc. Biking is simply not a formidable form of transportation back home in Dallas. Therefore, bicycles are cheaper because there is much less demand for them. That said, I was still able to find a relatively good bike for 150 euros, and I am very, very satisfied with my purchase thus far. It hasn't really given me any issues. I don't know too much about the different brands of bicycles, but I know that this isn't one of the best brands, but for me personally, it has been very reliable. And honestly, even if I could get one of the more expensive bicycles or even an e-bike, I probably wouldn't, simply because of this next point right here, which is thieves. Yes, thieves. Because bicycles are valued more highly here in the Netherlands, they naturally attract thieves. Supposedly, from what I understand, especially in the bigger cities like Amsterdam and Rotterdam, there's a big issue with people stealing bicycles. And even where people aren't necessarily stealing whole entire bicycles, people are stealing parts of bicycles. For example, my girlfriend had the light stolen from her bike 2 times in a row. 2 consecutive days going to the gym, she had the light stolen off the back of her bike. And I'm not saying that this doesn't happen back home in the US. As a matter of fact, as a child, I did have my bike stolen one time and I was absolutely devastated. But because there are more bikes here, bike theft is more common. Doesn't necessarily mean that theft in and of itself is more common, but bike theft most certainly is more common, and it's something that you have to keep in mind. Always make sure, if you have a bike here in the Netherlands, always make sure that you lock it up properly. Most bikes, instead of relying on the chain locks, have a key lock, which I had never actually seen prior to coming here, but you can simply turn the key and take the key with you. But make sure that you do not lose that key, because if you lose that key, you're basically cooked. You just have to get a new bike, because there's no way, at least to my knowledge, that you can get into a bike without that key, which in turn makes it extremely difficult to steal. Now, the next downside of biking here in the Netherlands is the weather. The weather here is pretty bad. It's pretty bad in general, much less for biking. It's cold, it's rainy, but worst of all, it's windy. It's very, very windy. As a matter of fact, you can probably hear some of the wind noise in the background of this video as you see me riding my bike, because it was very, very windy. And although it may not show in the video, my legs were on fire, and I'm somebody who works out 6 days a week. So best believe that if I'm getting tired doing this, the average person would definitely get tired doing this. I think a big part of the reason why it's so windy here in the Netherlands, aside from the fact that it's near the water and there's so much water here, is that it's flat. And so there's nothing to really obstruct the wind. So you're basically facing a full force headwind almost anywhere you go on that bicycle. And combined with the cold and the rain, it can make for some very miserable experiences, especially if you're prone to skin problems. I know that for me personally, I'm somebody who has suffered from dry skin in the past, so I've had to take great caution in how I go about taking care of my skin, especially knowing that I'm going to be biking in 30 or 40 degree weather. And one of the ways that I take good care of my skin, knowing that I'm going to be biking in such harsh conditions, is by having a consistent skincare routine. And that brings me to Tiege Hanley, the sponsor of today's video. Tiege Hanley skincare systems are designed around routines, the same way you live your life. Simple and uncomplicated, they require just a few minutes in the morning and before bed so you can stay focused on what matters to you. Seriously, implementing a visibly effective skincare routine will start boosting your confidence in every aspect of your life. Tiege Hanley's performance-driven formulas address men's different needs so you'll feel great about the way your skin looks and feels, whether you're starting a new job or meeting up on a first date. I recommend starting with their Level 1 system, which comes with all the essentials: a daily face wash, an exfoliating scrub, an AM moisturizer with SPF 20, and a PM moisturizer. Oh, and to make it super simple for guys like us, they provide this little cheat sheet in every box telling you when to use, how much to use, and in what order to use each product. Tiege Hanley has all your skincare needs covered, including acne. This is their acne clearing, breakout busting routine called Tiege Clear. It's a powerful system that gives you everything you need to win the fight against acne. But don't just take my word for it. Trust the millions of guys who use Tiege Hanley with over 16,000 5-star reviews. And Tiege Hanley thinks you'll agree, which is why they give you their handsome guarantee. Love it or get a full refund. No questions asked. You take care of your body by lifting weights, doing cardio, cycling, etc. But don't forget about your face. Skincare might be the last thing that you think about, but it's the first thing that other people see. And since Tiege Hanley is a sponsor, they have an amazing deal for you. Save up to 40% off your first box today and get a free gift valued at $20. Plus, sign up as a member today and you get 20% off for life. By the way, one of their free gifts is the Silicone Body Scrubber, the ultimate grooming tool to effortlessly exfoliate your skin. Valued at $20, it's yours for absolutely free. You can now find Tiege Hanley in hundreds of stores across the US. Just click the link below to discover a location near you. But if you want the best offer, shop through my link today and start a life-changing skincare routine. Now, the next downside of biking here in the Netherlands is that it ruins transport everywhere else. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, once you've biked in the Netherlands for long enough, you come to realize that nowhere else in the world is even close as far as the biking infrastructure goes. And what this does is it creates this false expectation that anytime you go somewhere, you should be able to travel via bicycle the way that you do here. But that is simply not the case in most of the developed world, much less the underdeveloped world. But even in the developed world in the US, where I come from, especially in Dallas, you really can't bike from point A to point B. I tried, believe me, I tried because I wanted to prepare, because I knew that I was coming to the Netherlands and I would be biking a lot. But what I quickly realized was that it's basically impossible because the infrastructure simply doesn't allow for it. There are no bike lanes, so you have to bike on the sidewalk, and more often than not, the sidewalk will just randomly end and you can't proceed. And so you have to go in the street with cars going 40 or 50 miles per hour who aren't accustomed to driving around bicycles, and you are very likely to get absolutely cooked by a Ford F-150. And best believe that if a bike and a Ford F-150 collide, the bike is not coming out on top. So all of those downsides, they really don't have anything to do with biking itself. If you just judge the biking on its own, it is objectively better than pretty much anywhere else in the world, maybe except for a place like Copenhagen or somewhere like that. That said, what are some of the upsides about biking in the Netherlands? What are the aspects of biking here that make it better than everywhere else, or at the very least, everywhere else that I have been to personally? First off are the bike lanes. The bike lanes are so extensive here that I don't think I could ever fully describe the extent of their reach. I don't think I could articulate it without showing it, which, like I said, if you want me to, I can post more POV videos of myself biking down different bike paths here in this area. But the bicycle lane network here is easily the best in the world. Now, I haven't been to every country in the world, but I don't have to. Just from what I've seen, I know that it's the best in the world. As far as where you can go with your bicycle, I don't think that there's any other country that matches it. And the width and the quality of the bike lanes. They had bike lanes in Valencia, and they were nice. They were much, much better than anything that we had in Dallas or even in LA. But the bike lanes were very narrow, which made crashes much more frequent, much more likely. And if you've ever biked in Valencia, you know that it can get uncomfortably tight in some of those spaces, especially in the dark. And on top of that, a lot of times the bike lanes just have really big bumps or potholes or other cracks in the road that you have to be very mindful of. And so if you swerve out of the way and there's another bike coming, because the bike lanes are so narrow, like I said, you're very, very likely to crash. My girlfriend has seen it for herself firsthand. Now, the second upside of biking here in the Netherlands is the bike parking. The bike parking. This is something that I suspect that Dutch people very likely take for granted because they have never been, at the very least, to Dallas. If you've been to Dallas, then you know that, like I said, even if you bike somewhere, even if you manage to get off the sidewalk and bike in the street with those cars going 40 or 50 miles per hour, that's probably what, 60 or 70 kilometers an hour, and they're all trucks, all right, coming at you full speed and not paying attention. Even if you manage to survive the journey, when you get to the destination, oftentimes there's nowhere to put your bike. And the bikes there generally don't have that key lock, so you have to rely on the chain lock, which means you have to chain the bike to something. But how can you do that when there's nothing to chain the bike to? Right? It doesn't make sense. You pretty much can't bike as your primary form of transportation in DFW and really in most of the US. And the lack of bike parking is a very big part of the reason why. There's no point in putting bike lanes there if you're not going to have bicycle racks. And here in the Netherlands, I have yet to find a place that didn't have abundant bike parking. There's ample bicycle parking pretty much everywhere you go. I don't live in a big town by any means, and I've never had an issue with finding bicycle parking. And then, of course, in the big towns, there's always bicycle parking, so that's never an issue here. But back home, it's not just an issue, it's not even a factor, it's non-existent. Bike parking literally doesn't exist in most places. Now, the next upside of biking here in the Netherlands is the driver awareness. The general awareness of the drivers on the road is pretty astounding to me. Oftentimes, whenever you're riding your bike here in the Netherlands, you'll come across a situation where there's a car coming from one side. Maybe you're going around a roundabout and a car has entered a roundabout and wants to take a turn in front of you. Every single time that has happened to me, the car has waited and allowed me to pass first. There's never even been a near miss because here bicycles have the right of way. Technically, back home, I believe anyways, bicycles have the right of way as well. However, people don't really honor and respect that. In fact, I can recall various times where I was riding my bike on the sidewalk. I had the walk sign. I literally had the walk sign. And as I went to cross the street, a car tried to turn right on red because turning right on red is legal in the US, at least in Dallas. And I almost got clapped. I almost got flattened. We're talking big trucks, lifted trucks. I almost got clapped by one of these trucks multiple times because I don't know if they just weren't paying attention or they weren't expecting me to be there because people don't walk or bike in Dallas generally if they don't have to. So I don't know what the reason behind that was. All I know is that if I had gotten hit by that truck, it wouldn't have mattered because I would have been dead.